Now for the exhaust, turns out the bottom bolt is like a 12 millimeter, and with this setup is the only thing I could get to fit on it nicely. But when I try to turn it, it feels like if I put any more pressure, it's just going to snap. And I had read where you can jack up the engine far enough to access these bolts that I'll be doing next without disconnecting the exhaust, and I think I'd rather go that route than snapping that bolt. Okay, here I raised the engine up so that I can see the two nuts, wiggling the engine. I maneuvered my socket with the 15 millimeter into the hardest one, loosened that up. It wouldn't come out because the frame of the car is too close. Then the closer one, I was able to take all the way out, and having the engine raised up, I was wiggling like crazy, pushing back on this housing. I was able to get these two, and then the whole thing comes out. The hardest part of the job as far as I've been told. So I'm just gonna look at that for just a second. So I plan on replacing that tensioner because it's garbage, I'm told, even though it seems to be fine, but I'd rather replace it now than do this operation again. So here is where I'm at. Good times to get that thing out. Yeah, now when I was looking at this cover up there, it had just you were able to just pull it pretty easily away from the back cover, and I started wiggling it to see if it would just wiggle off all the way around. It's good I didn't wiggle too hard because there were two of these 5/16 little bolts holding it on the bottom. So I got those off. Yay! Now I used a 19 millimeter socket to turn this cam here so that this arrow is pointing up. Follow the spline down and to this arrow so you can have everything lined up there. And you go over up here and you look, I've got it marked there. So that timing mark should match up, or our mark should match up with that. So we've got that up and ready to go. What I did was I took a 8 millimeter socket, put it on a nut that's back there so the wheel won't turn, and then I cracked it loose. So this did turn a little bit, so I went back down there and lined that back up with the same notch. And this, I used a little bit of nail polish to mark the cog and mark the belt where it appeared. So when I take off the belt, I can see if there aren't any timing or any marks on the belt as to where it should line up. Then I will put one on so I know where it goes. This car runs really nice, but as you see, this mark is way over here, and that doesn't line up with this mark here. I'm not sure why. I'm sure some hotshot mechanic will tell me something about timing and stuff, or maybe it jumped a notch on the belt so it's not lined up. But the car runs great except for this water pump problem, so I'm not going to mess with perfection. And of course, on the bottom I did a mark on the belt and the spindle, and I just kind of pulled the belt off. What I did was I gave a push on the belt, which brought the tensioner back a little bit and slid the belt off the water pump. So take the bolt out of there, and as you see, there's a little pin in there so that gear will go on the same way it came off. So I've got 13mm for the tensioner, and then 8mm for this cover, and then hopefully it's just the water pump. Alright, now we're finally down to the water pump, the culprit at the beginning. Listen to this. Am I glad that thing didn't seize up, break the belt, bend the rods. I'd be out here twice as long, at least. At least now I'm gonna get all the culprits taken care of. Yay! Okay, to get this harmonic balancer gear or crankshaft gear pulled off, I had to brace it here so it doesn't move that way, and then put this other 2x4 down behind the caliper and over here, and crank on the puller. Takes a 19mm socket to crank on this puller, and this one took 6mm bolts, which the kit, oh there it is, the kit had almost the right size, but it didn't have the right size, so for about $1 each I got the bolts and then put washers behind it so the head doesn't pull through this gap. But it is slowly pulling out, so that's what I'm doing now. Now, before you pull that crankshaft gear off, note the little groove in the shaft right before the gear itself. That's as far as you should tap it back on when you're putting it back together. If you go past that, then you'll have to put the puller back on it and pull it out again. And then also the torque for the water pumps, 22 pounds. Alright.